problem we did before, an inverse trig function, or solve a trig equation using our calculator. Sine of theta equals -0.9. We could take the inverse sine on both sides, or we could solve it graphically. Remember, every equation in the world can be solved graphically. So I'm going to graph the sine of theta on my calculator, and then we'll do that right now. Instead of theta, just put in x. So anytime you try to graph a trig function, just use sine of x. And then after you graph that trig function on your calculator, so let me hit enter over here, you'll get something that looks like that. Now we're only supposed to solve for theta between 0 and 2 pi. Pi is about 3.14, so 2 pi is about 6.28. My current window goes from 0 to 10 on the x-axis, so 6.28 is somewhere back here. It's actually right there. But you could do a zoom trig to make it look like that. So it's something maybe you haven't done before. Go to menu. One of our zoom options, window zoom, is zoom trig, which is number 8 on mine. And when you do zoom trig, it always makes the x values from -2 pi to +2 pi. We're supposed to only solve between 0 and 2 pi. So we know our answers have to be somewhere in here. And we want to know when this graph equals -0.9. Well, -0.9 is like right there. If I drew a horizontal line across, we would see that it crosses that axis twice. We want to find out when it crosses. So we could actually just graph another horizontal line at -0.9. We've done this before first semester. To solve any equation in the world, you can graph everything on the left, graph everything on the right, and find out where they cross. So now I'm going to I'm going to go back here and graph -0.9 as a horizontal line. So we just y equals -0.9 and hit enter. And we see that, and we see it's going to cross twice. So we hit menu and we analyze the graph. We find an intersection, and we say in between there and let's say there. And it tells us 4.26 is one of the answers. And that's the same answer we got doing it the other way. So now we have theta equals 4.26. You don't use the y value. The y value is going to be -0.9 because that's when we're trying to find it. But where else does it cross? So we go back through that process again, menu, analyze, graph, find an intersection, and pick the left bound and the right bound. So somewhere in between there and there is the other one, and it looks like 5.16. So I got 4.26 and 5.16. That's the same two answers I got by using inverse trig before, using the calculator and then converting it. So it might be easier just to graph. If you're ever given a calculator and asked to solve an equation, remember, you can always just graph it. And we just did that right here. We got our two answers of 4.26 and 5.16. Because the directions say only solve between 0 and 2 pi, there really are an infinite number of solutions. This graph keeps going forever in both directions. But because the answers say solve between 0 and 2 pi, those are our two answers we get. That might be the easier way to solve a trig equation when given your calculator.